Alright, response video to Anekantavad. It's been a little while. Must have been buried under weather. But anyway, work and such, no doubt. Anyway, so he's done a video that's it's a response to themes, I guess, in one of my videos, but it's called Room 101. And it's a question about why we do things in spite of, say, the downside. The negative. So he's using the 1984 novel where an element in the novel is the fact that, there's a revolution against the Big Brother, this mechanism, this system of control, and the two revolutionaries are lovers, and in the end they are tortured by their worst nightmare. And for the guy, I think it's rats, and for the woman, I can't remember. But I remember the rats inside. They put a glass bowl over his head and have rats in it, and that's his worst nightmare kind of thing. So that's the illustration of the horror. In the end, the two of them both turn each other in, and it's a very, it's just a dismal ending. Big Brother completely wins. The two lovers their love is essentially destroyed because they both can't live with the guilt of turning each other in, and it's just bleak as bleak could be. So anyway, his argument is let's say the torture, because it is personalized, is somehow equalized. And why is there a difference between when people give in, let's say? Theoretically, there's a difference, he's saying. We don't even know if there is a difference, but theoretically, let's say there's a difference to their threshold. Yeah, I don't think you could equalize something like torture. And obviously the mechanism that would counter what you're willing to endure is the extent of your passion, your desire. So, I mean, we see it with heroin addicts all the time. They're dying, they're physically killing themselves, and yet they will still seek out the drug. They will, even though they're ethical and decent people when they start out, they become petty thieves, and they will smash people over the head with a brick to get the money for the heroin. They will compromise all their values. They would sell their kids. They would sell their mother into slavery to get their fix, because the suffering is so bad, it's so terrible, and they know the relief is going to be so complete. And so they're highly motivated, and even in that context, people, have more or less of an objection to suicide. They could even have a religious notion or something of its prohibition. They don't want to become a bureaucrat in purgatory, or whatever the sentence is. This could be lots of reasons. So yeah, it's a kind of doesn't go too far, but obviously the two mechanisms are desire, hope, beauty. Meaning you have a kid to take care of or something. I mean, obviously you had a kid, there'd be more incentive. You'd think about your kid growing up without you and not having your wonderful guidance. And say, I must be there to protect them. I must be there to help them. So you'll endure more. You'll fight harder in the war. If you love Rome, you'll fight harder for Rome. Be a better gladiator, a better soldier, believing in the cause, that kind of thing. So I think I was thinking that, obviously so my extended thoughts on the subject were, the first thing that popped into my head is that my worst tortures aren't necessarily, physical tortures are horrible, don't get me wrong, but even worse might be is if you did have a child and they were brutalizing and raping and deforming and scarring your child right in front of you. It's really hard to think of something more just brutal to you, your soul, a deeper wound that could be inflicted on your hope, on your will to live, on your desire to live. Once you've seen that, or say your wife, your lover, and you're having to deal with your own future, the fact that you couldn't save her, and you watch her crucified in front of you. And could you ever go back? Is the well now dry? Is life now a desert? There'll be no satisfaction ever again. That perception will never, that scar will never go away. So this torture isn't just a torture now, it's a destruction of any capacity for you to manifest a will to take one more little inch in the game, because everything, every kernel has been taken from you. So I mean, everybody has their thing, right? Like, the classic example is the artist who, goes paralyzed and can't do art anymore, or, the mountain climber who loses a leg or an arm or something, can't climb mountains anymore. The thing that made life mean something to them is gone, and they commit suicide because there's nothing left for them. They were owned and wrapped up in that segment, that piece of life, and that's the only piece that could mean anything. It's all that has any meaning to them. And then the game is over. They'll take no torture. No pain is endurable. It all screams very loudly when you have no desire to put next to it to muffle the screams. The screams of your own psychology are muffled, are kept under control by how much desire you have to defend something you're doing, to defend your life, to make your life mean something. These are important things to people sometimes, are these ego notions, striving for these gold medals, striving for some mommy loves me kind of idea. I mean, it is all just psychology, so you can trivialize it because it is all very, it's bigoted and nepotistic and chauvinistic, and, you can go down all the list of all the things these kind of ego mechanisms are. These glory moments, these pride moments, they are very superficial. And when you see them in other animals, you can sort of see, you can mock it a little bit, and you can kind of just say, gee, this is really silly, that this is what makes us feel good about ourselves, are these shallow, trivial victories. But anyway, that would be the catch here, is that the idea of what is torture, the only thing there are is there's your attraction to life and the repulsive nature of the sensations. And so there's two ways to completely break you. Take away all attractiveness, or flood you with so much repulsion that it doesn't matter how beautiful life is or how much you love it, you're going to turn in your wife, you're going to turn in your lover, because the pain is so intense. So you balance those two things, and they'll tell you somewhere in that balance is the will to live. But you have to count both streams, the in and the out, so to speak. The desire to accomplish versus the need to accomplish, the need to do another inch, versus the pain of it. And so I don't know what else to metaphor to the destruction of beauty thing, but that's always how painful would it be, to watch somebody, let's say, destroy the Sistine Chapel to try to get you to talk. They're trying to get something from you, and your resistance or your unwillingness is destroying. Like the David is getting chipped into little pieces until you talk. It might be an interesting question, is how much of it would you allow to be broken? How much of, they're just interesting questions. So how much would we sacrifice for something we cherish? And like I said, certainly because of our psychology, there's a hard investment in the things that are close to us, our parents, our siblings, our children, our mate. And those we can see the obvious cheat in how we've disproportionately valued them. You can rationally know your parents aren't better than the other parents. You can rationally know that your siblings aren't just by coincidence the greatest people on earth. that you know there must be some psychology working there. Your children aren't better than the other children. And why is there a difference between them being disposed of, the theys, and the ones that you claim possession of? Why should those two things hurt you differently? I think that's a really interesting question. Why do those two swords have, the same punishment, and yet you're going to find one a lot less tolerable to watch? That should be an indication of something. That should indicate that, yes, this psychology can make you do stupid things. It can make you irrational if you let it own you. If you're not, if you're not a little bit cynical in evaluating its credibility as a recognizer of value, as a recognizer of need and urgency, as a recognizer of the proper strategy. It has it's corrupt. It's probably the wrong word. It has limited credibility as a source of wisdom. Yeah. So anyway, interesting enough. So my 2 cents. He says he's going to make a couple more videos probably on this subject, so let's see if this is any fodder for that continuation.